Hey guys, this thing is an absolute weapon. So it's a bit wet now, it's struggling for traction a little bit, understandably. Welcome to the new Honda Civic Type R. I loved the previous generation, and in fact I love all Type R models because just their philosophy. It's all about lightness, the driving experience, naturally aspirated. Obviously the new model is turbocharged like the previous generation, but the same sort of philosophy still exists. Everything you see on the car is there for a reason. There's nothing fake about this car, which is what I love. But firstly, the design of the new model. I really like this less fussy design and more clean, neater approach. So this is based on the latest generation Civic, of course, so it features various design elements from the basic Civic as well, such as the headlights and just the general shape. So a lot more curves now instead of these sharp, somewhat strange angles of the previous model, particularly at the back. I really like the neat proportions of the rear end. Obviously the huge rear wing gives the game away. That's not a conventional feature on a run-of-the-mill model. And then down below is a very chunky rear diffuser with the trademark triplet of exhausts poking out. That larger pipe in the center apparently helps to reduce back pressure. Like the previous model, you don't really appreciate what this car is about until you drive it flat out, preferably on a track. But even on the roads, on the mountain roads and things, you can really push this thing safely, and it just doesn't skip a beat. It just keeps going. The suspension absorbs the bumps really well, and the power down traction is also very impressive. This new model is the most powerful. It's 235 kilowatts, 420 newton meters, which to me, 420 newton meters is quite a bit to send through the front wheels. So that's probably why Honda has decided to fit huge 265 30s front and back. I can't think of another hot hatch that features wider tyres, not a front wheel drive hot hatch anyway. So it's very impressive that they've done that to try and maintain and harness all of that power. I've done some performance testing. It is pretty difficult to get the power down off the line, but once you're up and going, you can come out of a corner, apply a fair bit of power, and it will give you a little bit of a tug on the steering wheel, but then rocket you straight out of the corner. In the front end, you've got a nice large intake there for the intercooler. It goes all the way across the other side, so full width, and then you've got intakes down there and in the sides as well. And then up on the bonnet, a real bonnet vent that goes through to the engine compartment. I love these fat wheel arches on the front. This crease line here reminds me of like a Group A rally car, like it's really pumped out, and it even has a vent there that goes through to help the airflow. And then around at the back, you've obviously got that massive rear wing and the diffuser. But aside from that, it looks pretty conventional. You've got the new full width taillight design, which seems to be a trend at the moment. And then black badges, or titanium look badges, I suppose. Shadow chrome, whatever you want to call it. It looks much more discreet. Aside from the big wings and things, it does look much more discreet and more subtle. Yeah, I really like the design of this new model. I think it goes well with the Type R philosophy. It doesn't scream and shout, although previous Type Rs did actually scream and shout.
Gan-san testing the Integra R on the winding course at its home ground, the Takasu test course.
I'm gonna go for it.
Yes, it does have big wings and so on, but everything that you see on that car is there for a reason, and it's set lap records. So if it didn't have those features on the car, it wouldn't have set the lap records. And in that sense, I don't think the design is about showing off. It's not trying to attract attention for the wrong reasons. Taking a look under the bonnet, this is a revised version of the previous engine. So it's a 2-litre VTEC turbo. It produces 7 more kilowatts than the previous model. It's now at 235 kilowatts, making it the most powerful Type R production car ever. I think it even looks really good, this engine. Just the way it's got the red and the carbon fiber look trimmings on there. A lot of engines these days just have a big plastic cover over the whole thing. And then this big air intake trumpet, fully sealed, so it gets fresh air from the front end. I can't see what type of turbocharger it is. I tried to angle it right down there, but Can't quite read what it says on the side there. There is a new lighter weight flywheel in there as well with a revised clutch, and it also features rev matching. So that means when you're driving along and you change down a gear, if you're in the sport modes, it'll blip the throttle and match the revs with the gear speed. All right, let's check out the interior and then we'll take it for a drive. We'll just get it out of the sun because it's the middle of winter at the moment and the sun is quite low. So firstly, you can hear the engine. There's a bit of bass to it. You can actually hear the turbocharger a little bit there, but at the actual tailpipe, you can hear a bit more bass and there's a bit more character to it. You'll love these seats in the front. They've got excellent support on the sides, even for your legs, but they're also very soft and comfortable. Wrapped in Alcantara or suede, including the center console here, gear lever boot and the steering wheel. It's all very cool and warm. You just want to drive this thing all day long. I really like the design theme of the interior of the latest Civic as well. It matches the exterior in that it's pretty discreet. It doesn't have too much going on, except this grille that goes all the way across. Most of it isn't actually a grille, like it doesn't do anything. It's just plastic behind there, but then it's got these hidden vents that you can't really see where they are, it's very intricate actually. And you can move the direction of the vent as well with these little joysticks. It all feels very well made too. And then up on the dash is Honda's latest touchscreen system. I don't think it's the best in the market. Just the graphics, they're a little bit basic. It's got some colors going on there to try and freshen it up, but it is very user-friendly. I like that it does have a home button, so you can jump straight to it. And then you've got the main functions along the bottom here. They are a part of the touch screen. They're not separate buttons, but you can just jump to FM or digital radio or the sat nav if you want to. And then perhaps a big feature that Honda has made the switch back to is a volume knob. So you don't have the button system that they used to have sitting there hitting up or down on the volume button. Is just, yeah, very tedious. It's also got this discrete skip track buttons as well, so you can just jump straight to that, and then they're on the steering wheel, which is all good. I think touchscreens they're starting to wind back a little bit. It used to be that fill everything on the put everything in the touchscreen, whereas I think some manufacturers have realized that not all users want that, and in my opinion, I don't think it's completely safe to have everything in a touchscreen, because it becomes quite distracting if you've got to dig around within touchscreens just to, change radio stations, for example. Which brings me on to the main one, climate control. This is housed down here on a completely separate panel. Some systems that have the climate control within a touchscreen, I think it's just ridiculous, because you shouldn't be fiddling around with that while you're driving along just to turn the temperature down or something. Whereas here, mechanical knobs, turn it down straight away. You can turn the aircon on or off straight away very easily. Fan speed right in the middle. Yeah, I think it's very user-friendly and perfect. It still looks clean and modern, but it has the buttons there that you want. And then down below, you've got multiple charging options. You've got two USB, conventional USB and a 12-volt socket, as well as a wireless charge pad. And then your drive mode toggle switch here. So you've got individual sport and comfort in the main modes, but if you push R+, that'll give you maximum everything. And then Honda also introduced this Honda Log R app within the touchscreen. So this is where you can monitor all sorts of things, performance pages and acceleration figures and even lap times. View the live telemetry, even turbo boost pressure, which you do have down there on the gauge as well. But yeah, that's all lots of fun. I think having that sort of system in a modern car is a must, especially as we move to electric, where some of this stuff will just disappear completely. The driving position is perfect. I don't have any complaints here. You can adjust the steering wheel right out and right in, up and down. You can also adjust the seat quite a bit to suit all different shapes and sizes. And I've got great visibility as well. I can see over that side mirror, which I think is very important. Some cars have the side mirror completely concealing your view through there. Then the pillar itself is also quite thin, so you can see around it anyway. Like the conventional Civic, This has got heaps of legroom. I think it's probably one of the class leaders in terms of legroom actually, because yeah, I've got my seat probably slightly forward compared to the average height driver. I'm 170 centimeters, so I'm a bit short, but even if you had that back a couple of inches, you'd still have decent legroom for this class. The seats are pretty slim. I mean, they are quite serious, so you do have these sections here that support your shoulders that kind of stick out and take away that perception of space a little bit compared with the conventional Civic, but overall they're quite slim, the back of them. They're not like big racy chunky bucket seats. This model doesn't come with rear air vents or even charging ports in the back. There's nothing there at all. It's a little bit disappointing, but this is a hardcore hot hatch, so I don't know, perhaps I can get away with it a bit, especially if it's in the name of lightness. I kind of like the way the rear seat isn't red, because it sort of relegates the back passengers a little bit. The driving is the most important part, and perhaps your co-driver, but the rear passengers, you know, they don't matter. They should be on a lower class, kind of anyway, not in a bad way, but just, yeah, this car is about driving, and this is, yeah, it's got back seats. They're quite practical. You've got cup holders, you can take people, but the main thing is being in the front in the driver's seat. Even the transmission tunnel or exhaust tunnel, I suppose you'd call it, on a front wheel drive, it's not too big and intrusive. There isn't a middle seat, unfortunately, but even still, with a big chunky tunnel there, it kind of does take up a bit of space, make it feel a bit clunky, whereas that, being so low, yeah, just frees up that room, or the perception of room. So yeah, big, decent sized boot with a pull across security blind there to conceal your important items, but yeah, very basic. There's no 12-volt socket back here, and even under the floor there's not even a space saver spare wheel that's been removed for the Type R. The first thing I want to talk about is the ride. So this is a very hardcore hot hatch, obviously setting the Nürburgring lap record. It's going to have firm suspension, but I don't think it's as firm as you might think, especially for such a hardcore model like this. The initial bump, the littler bumps, the initial vibration is definitely evident, but the compression range is surprising. It will soak up big bumps very easily, and it doesn't send the shockwave straight through to your backbone. One thing that it does bring out though is a lot of creaks and rattles, so you can probably hear the dash rattling away there. The door trim's got a bit of a rattle. In the conventional Civic models that I've driven, it's all very quiet and very refined. But being a hardcore model, you have to expect some sacrifice. So for example, this would have very tight bushes in all of the suspension parts, and probably even fixed mountings in some of the elements as well. So you don't have that initial give that softer bushes and things in regular cars provide. I thought the previous model Civic Type R offered an excellent ride for what it was, and I think the same as can be said with this, but I think that initial bump is just a little bit firmer than before, in my opinion. I can't quite remember the last time I drove a Civic Type R. The previous model was in 2018 or 19 or something, so I can't quite remember the full detail, but I just don't remember it picking up the initial vibrations as much as this. So to start with, I've just left it in the comfort mode. And yeah, it's very easy to drive. It feels like a normal Civic actually, as long as you don't put your foot all the way to the floor on the accelerator. You could confuse this for a totally conventional Honda Civic, a very, a high-end model, but a conventional model that your grandmother could drive. You can't really hear the engine when you're just cruising along. It just has a very conventional sort of engine hum, which I think is nice. I don't mind that the natural sounds of an engine making a noise, even with all the sound insulation throughout the dash and everything, muffling it down a little bit. You've still got that conventional engine sound. It's not fake, which is great. That's in the comfort mode though. Hit the R+ button, and you get some fake stuff coming through the speakers, which is a bit disappointing. So just then in third gear, I put the accelerator almost to the floor. Just got a little tug as it went over a little bump. Skipped traction just for a second there. That's how much torque this thing has. In fact, if you're in second gear, Yeah, that sounds a little bit fake, but anyway. If you're in second gear and you floor it, oh, nice little bass boost, little muffle from the exhaust there when I let go of the throttle. I'll try and do that again. Sort of went boom as I backed off on the throttle. Anyway, second gear, 50 k's an hour. Bit of a tug with the steering wheel, but yeah, the traction was excellent. Mid-range torque is just sensational for this type of car. It's like a V8 almost. I mean, 420 Newton meters, you know, wasn't that long ago when big 6-cylinder Falcons and things were producing that much torque or even less torque. This thing is so sure-footed around the corners, it's amazing. Those huge tyres just really hang on, and Honda has obviously done decades of engineering to get this thing right. You've got to remember the previous generation was already at a very high standard, so this is just building upon things that they already know. And you can see it, you can totally see it. We'll just put it back to comfort mode for a minute. Just talk a little bit more about this cruising. So it's 100 k an hour speed limit zone here. I'll just pick up the speed a little bit. And sixth gear, you're doing a bit over 2,000 RPM, which is not too bad. The suspension is definitely nicer in the comfort mode, as you'd expect, as it should be. But it's still sporty enough. It doesn't turn it into a completely docile, boring hatchback. And a few of those vibrations in the dash seem to disappear when you're in comfort mode. The steering is beautiful. I can feel everything I want to feel coming through from the road, and very little negativity. Yeah, the steering is about as perfect as you can get for a front-wheel drive production car in modern times. So you've got to understand that all manufacturers are trying to save fuel and reduce emissions, so electronic power steering systems are just what we have to live with at the moment because they're more eco-friendly. Yeah, you could totally live with this car as an everyday car. There's nothing wrong with its cruising capability. The ride, yeah, just that initial bump, as I said, might get on some people's nerves if they're not used to this type of car. If they are, then yeah, like I could live with this car easily every day. There's no problem about it. But my wife, maybe not, just have to get a bit of getting used to. I think the main thing though is, and it's, you know, traditional Honda, is it's user-friendly. It's very easy to drive. You don't need any special racing license to understand how this thing works. The gear shift's very easy, the clutch is light, as I said, and the steering feels really nice. We'll head out now to a more challenging road and we'll see how it really handles. Alright, so we're back in plus R mode now. Let's see how it goes. Good brakes. The turn-in is incredible. Yeah, I think the suspension is probably too stiff for a mountain road. It's just bouncing a little bit too much, I think. Bit slippery around this one. So it's a bit wet now. It's struggling for traction a little bit, understandably. Still lots of fun though. But yeah, I don't know if you can tell from the camera, but it's bouncing around quite a bit. It's not that it's bouncing, it's just very rigid. I don't think the R+ mode is suitable for public roads, or at least a mountain road like this. You're better off just leaving it in comfort mode. It's still very taut and very responsive, but you just don't have that no forgiveness where it's just, I've definitely driven firmer hot hatches. I think I remember some of the earlier Renault Megane RSs, they were really firm and pick up every single detail in the road. I'll just hit these reflectors here. Yeah, that's not too bad, whereas some cars I've driven that have very rigid suspension, it sends a full vibrational bang as you hit just a reflector like that. So it's still, look, it's definitely doable to drive it on the public road in R+ mode, but I think you're better off just leaving it in comfort mode, and then you'll enjoy it more because it just won't be, quite as bouncy. But the engine is just insane. It's a crazy amount of pull for a little 4-cylinder. Third gear, floor it. Yeah, awesome acceleration, awesome performance. It's no wonder it's got the Nürburgring lap record. It sounds pretty good. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Honda has specifically said it has fake sound enhancement through the speakers, but it definitely sounds like it to me in the +R mode. This thing will be absolutely awesome on the track. It'll be just walk away from a lot of higher end stuff, I think, because it is just so committed. Even after hitting bumps, the wheels feel like they're firmly planted on the ground all the time. That sun's nice and bright, isn't it? What sort of boost is it running? So just check on that gauge there, and I'll floor it in third. What was that, 1.5. Good brakes as well. They feel good, even in the wet. Pulls up very nicely. Those shift lights on the dash are pretty cool too. They make it feel really racy. If you want the fastest front-wheel drive hatchback on the market today, this is it. So we're going to do some performance testing now. I don't know what it's going to be like with the front-wheel drive system with that much power. I think the best thing to do is not rev it up too much. You don't need to rev cars that have, or potentially have traction issues. So I'm just going to try and build the revs just slightly off idle, and then progressively apply full throttle while releasing the clutch very quickly. It does have a launch control system as well. In my experience, launch control systems for manual cars rarely come up with better results, because if you just give it full power, it revs up to about 3,500 RPM, release the clutch, it's going to either try and work out traction with traction control system, and it will probably bog down, and then it will either spin too much or or not enough. So I think just using your leg to monitor, or your legs, to gauge how much power you need to manage the wheel spin as well as get a good takeoff. But I am still worried about traction. I think this thing could do much quicker times than what we can achieve out of it today on a drag strip or something like that, or something with a bit more traction. This private road we're using, it's not exactly slick. It's quite flat, but it's not awesome for low traction vehicles, or vehicles that struggle with traction. Anyway, we'll give it a crack. This is what it goes like.